o'clock. Thank you for joining us at this time. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The top stories. Federal government postpones launch of a Nigerian students' loan scheme indefinitely. World Trade Organization, WTO, inaugurates $1.2 million program to improve export standards of Nigeria's sesame and cowpea products. Sokoto State Government earmarks 6.7 billion naira for the feeding of poor and underprivileged persons during the 30-day Ramadan fast. Details coming up shortly. Welcome back. I am Omoife Peace Osemere. Now, the federal government has postponed the launch of the Nigerian Students' Loan Scheme indefinitely. The Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, Akintunde Sawyer, made this known during an interview on a national television program. It would be recalled that President Bola Tinubu had in June 2023 signed a bill to start a students' loan fund that would give interest-free loans to Nigerians for higher education. The bill was proposed by former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, and was built to start between September and October 2023, but preparations for the program were only finalized early this year. However, barely 48 hours before the launch, Sawyer said the loan scheme was postponed due to some corrections that were being made around the launch. Still staying with education matters, where the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has cautioned parents and guardians against enrolling minors in the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. This was contained in a statement by the board's spokesperson, Fabian Benjamin, on Wednesday in Abuja. According to media reports, the registrar of the board, Professor Ishaq Olede, gave the warning while reacting to a suit filed by one Mrs. Ifeanyi Eke against the board over inappropriate text messages sent to her 15-year-old daughter during her registration. Eke had filed a 100 million naira suit against JAMB and 3 others before the Federal High Court in Lagos over alleged unsolicited and inappropriate text messages sent to her 15-year-old daughter. Reacting to the incident, Olede said the board was ready to meet with the woman, maintaining that the sender of the message was not a staff of the board. The registrar said since the incident happened, JAMB reported to security agencies to take appropriate action, but the woman has insisted on suing for 100 million naira at the expense of the child. From education matters now, Nigeria has called on palm oil producing countries of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to work assiduously towards resolving their disagreement, which threatens sub-regional trading in the sector. Head ECOWAS National Unit, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yakubu Dadu, made the call at a meeting of the group Free Movement of Palm Oil under the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme yesterday in Abuja. Dadu, who noted that the meeting was a platform for conversation with palm oil producing countries and industry stakeholders, urged them to establish measurable metric thresholds based on production capacity. According to him, in spite of the remarkable success of the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS, which was established in 1979, the West African sub-region found itself facing challenges within the pivotal palm oil sector. Another World Trade Organization, WTO, has inaugurated a $1.2 million program to improve export standards of Nigeria's sesame and cowpea products. Director General of WTO, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, stated this at the launch of the 7 trade support programs for Nigeria in Abuja, where she said the project is aimed at tackling cases of rejection of Nigeria's products on the international market, stressing that it was inaugurated with the Standards Trade Development Facility, STDF, International Trade Center, ITC, and the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, NEPC. According to her, Nigeria's agriculture sector had the potential to be a major driver of export diversification and job creation, but too much of this potential remained unrealized due to barriers. Right, you're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, latest report by the United Nations Interagency Group for Child Mortality Estimation shows that the number of children who died before their 5th birthday has dropped to 4.9 million. We'll bring you details of this and more stories after the break. Do join us again. Right, welcome back from that break. This is news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. We head on now to Sokoto State, where the state government has earmarked 6.7 billion naira for the feeding of poor and underprivileged persons in the state during the 30-day Ramadan fast. According to media reports, the state governor Ahmed Aliyu disclosed this during the flag-off of the distribution of grains to 18,400 orphans and the destitute across the state at the state government house on Monday. He noted that the underprivileged persons would be fed at the 605 Ramadan feeding centers created by the state. Given the breakdown of the expenditure, the governor said 1.2 billion naira was allocated to 244 wards of feeding centers, while 797.9 million naira was allocated to the existing 335 feeding centers across the state. Meanwhile, the governor of Jigawa State, Umar Namadi, has approved the reduction of working hours for workers in the state by 2 hours in view of the Ramadan fast. This was disclosed in a statement by the state head of service, Alhaji Muhammad Dagacheri. Dagacheri said workers were expected to report to work at 9 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. from Monday to Thursday. And our latest report by the United Nations Interagency Group for Child Mortality Estimation has shown that the number of children who died before their 5th birthday reached a historic low, dropping to 4.9 million in 2022. Reports have it that the United Nations Interagency Group for Child Mortality Estimation is led by the United Nations Children's Fund and includes the World Health Organization, the World Bank Group, and the Population Division of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Welfare, Social Affairs. According to the report, which was released today, more children are surviving today than ever before, with the global under-5 mortality rate declining by 51% since 2000. It said several low and lower middle income countries have outpaced this decline, showing that progress is possible when resources are sufficiently allocated to primary health care, including child health and well-being. And now to other matters, the federal government says that there are plans to gradually move towards a cost-reflective electricity tariff. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu disclosed this on Monday. And according to the Special Advisor on Strategic Communication and Media Relations, Bolaji Tunji, quoted the minister as saying that the industry would gradually move towards fairer pricing that will last till the next 3 years. It would be recalled that the minister had last month said it was difficult for the federal government to continue to subsidize electricity, stressing that Nigeria's debt to generation and gas companies was now 3 trillion naira. Meanwhile, the federal government has issued a marching order asking the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) to withdraw licenses of non-performing electricity distribution companies, DISCOs. Apparently, the burning issues in the power sector have left Nigerians with a handful of questions that need answers. I will be discussing this with the Secretary, Nigeria Electricity Consumer Advocacy Network, the person of UKET Obonga, after this quick break. Do join us again. Welcome back from that break. And if you are just joining us, this is News Analysis Live on Politics and Business TV. I have with me the Secretary, Nigeria Electricity Consumer Advocacy Network, UKET Obonga, on the show this afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon.
Well, of course, I'm seeing you for the first time this year, so it's safe to say a Happy New Year to you.
Same to you too.
All right, so much has been going on in the country lately, and it calls for concern, but I really do not know how much of a concern it is to you. The erratic power supply, it's been quite difficult for Nigerians, you know, to live peacefully. When I say peacefully, not necessarily because, you know, we have some sort of instability going on, but how do you go to work on a daily basis? You know, you grapple with all of the challenges at work, relating with people on your way to work or even the market, and you go back home after the day's stress. There is no light. Even to sleep is now difficult. I hear people take their bath even midnight just to have, you know, a sound, you know, a sleep or rest, if you like. But let's get your thoughts. I mean, how has it been with you in terms of, you know, the erratic power supply, whether for, you know, personal or business purposes?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It is very unfortunate anyway that we have found ourselves as a nation in this mess. What I always tag a man-made problem. Electricity generation, transmission, distribution is not rocket science. We in Nigeria are not inventing the wheel. It has been done, and it is still being done in other countries in Africa, and they are getting it right. So the question is, why are we not getting it right? What is responsible? So, but if you have an understanding of the workings of the system, you will understand and draw the conclusion that it is a man-made problem.
A deliberate one at that.
Deliberate one at that. Insincerity on the part of those involved. And we toy with this nation, which is very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. Electricity is the oxygen that drives industrial development of any nation in the world. You don't toy with it. You don't play politics with it. You don't leave it into the hands of mediocres. You don't come up with electricity, oh, because this one is a political supporter, you have to bring him in, you have to... No, 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 it's not done so.
When you say you don't leave, you know, this sector in the hands of mediocre, are you indirectly or by implication referring to the Minister of Power?
No, well, from the very top down, I must say it boldly, and I've said it anyway. Number one, electricity, as I've always said, is a measurable quantity. Everything in electricity you can measure, you can determine. You can measure and know the number of Nigerians that are using electricity, the customer population. Today, we don't know, we don't have. Unfortunately. I repeat, in this country today, Nigerians don't know. The industry don't have reliable, accurate statistical data on those using electricity.
Okay, so to butch you real quick, before you tell us what the real issues are, is it now justified for countries like Ghana, who actually tag Nigeria a generator republic?
Of course, we generate electricity here in Nigeria. We have the gas to power thermal plants. We have hydro plants that generate. But what do we have here? You don't have the light. You don't have energy here. So Nigerians import generators to power their factories, their homes, their offices, and everything. So if Ghana is berating Nigeria and mocking Nigeria and calling Nigeria a generator republic, I think in their own right, they are right. They are right.
We also understand that Nigeria's debt to generation and gas companies, you know, is now at 3 trillion naira. Is that also a reason why there's been this erratic power supply in the country?
Well, that is the claim by the gas companies But any time in this country they come up with such figures, we become skeptical. Some of us, we don't accept and believe it wholesale. And because of this, I've always advocated for debt, the so-called debt review and verification. Recently, right in Abuja here, AEDC published names of ministries, departments, and agencies of government, including the seat of power, the villa, where it was alleged that they are owing 920 million as bills to the AEDs. Fine. They sat down and called for a review and verification of these debts. And at the end of the day, what was verified as the actual indebtedness by the villa, the seat of power in Nigeria, it was between 380 to 400 million, about 44% of what was alleged to be owed, the amount of 900.
Isn't that a slap, on AEDC's face?
But this is not the first time. I cite another example.
You can't help but imagine the way they go after average, citizens in terms of, paying bills. So if you have an accumulation of bill, to the tune of billions of naira, that should be a slap, on the AEDC.
Yes. Now, apart from that, let me cite another example. Benidisco, a local government called Udu, local government in Delta State, was said to be owing 587 million to Benidisco, another 300 million, totaling about 887 million. And because of that, the community, I think 34 of 39 communities, towns and villages were taken out of supply.
Okay, now let's hit the nail on the head. What exactly are the issues that have triggered such a drop in power supply in the country? Well, one would say that it is now a tradition for, power supply generation to drop drastically at this time of the year, probably because of this time and season we're in. Is that the case?
Yes, there is no supply. Recall, if we go back a little bit, when the current democratic governance came on board in 1999, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration discovered that Nigeria could only generate 1,920 megawatts of electricity. So he set up a committee, and by 2023, 2003, they ramped up generation to about 4,500 megawatts.
And we'll be maintaining that.
Now we have a generation capacity, that is the entire hydro plants and thermal plants put together. They have capacity to generate 13,000 megawatts of electricity. But there is what they call installed capacity. There is what is called generation capacity. There is what is called available capacity. And now we have been dancing around 4,000, 4,500. And even if we generate 4,500, the available generation capacity, the GENCOs will tell you, is about 6,414 on the average for this year, January to February. 6,414.36 megawatts of electricity. But what is the transmission company of Nigeria able to take? Do you wheel 6,000 of these megawatts into the system? The system will collapse. The transmission company of Nigeria does not have the capacity to wheel this quantum of load. Then coming down to the discos, they equally don't have the capacity. We are told that about 1,796.91 megawatts of electricity was rejected daily in 14 days, 1st of February to 14th of February this year, 2024. The distribution company rejects load.
Because we don't have the capacity.
Because they don't have the capacity. So it's not a question of a generation. The question is, do we have the distributors, do they have the capacity to receive this load and push it to Nigerians? And for your information, the World Bank reports states clearly that 90 million Nigerians, 90 million or 45% of the population of Nigeria do not have access to electricity. the highest in the world.
That speaks volumes, because we know, of course, that the power sector is a major driver of, economic growth and industrial development, just like you said earlier. So now that you've been able to point out the fact that it's not just about, the generation capacity, but having the capacity to also, accept this.
Accept what is generated.
Yes. Would it be intelligent to say that the Minister of Power or the federal government is unaware of this setback?
They are aware. Why? The question is, why are the distribution companies rejecting load? Why? All over the world, if you generate electricity, you don't generate electricity and store in tanks. Electricity is not stored in reservoirs. As they are generating, if this is from the grid and not your local generator here, it means somebody is generating electricity, it is being coiled, and it is getting here. That is why you're having light. Right? Now, for the system, the entire value chain to work, the GenCos must generate. And at the same time, what they are generating, the transmission company must be in a position to transmit, to coil or transport, move from generation to the distribution companies. And the quantum of load or power so generated and coiled to the distribution companies, the distribution network, infrastructure network must be in position to take in this load. But when it gets to these people generate, they say they can generate about 6,414 average megawatts of electricity. But TCN does not have the capacity to take that. Distribution companies, if TCN has, maybe they can take up to 5,000 megawatts of electricity, coming down to, the DISCO will say, we can't take this quantum of, and that's the situation we find ourselves.
Well, lately, the Minister of Power has been, stressing or hampering on the fact that we're going to exceed 4,500 megawatts of, power or electricity. But then, now that you've pointed out the fact that there is something called capacity. To accept whatever it is that is being generated. And now the minister is optimistic that in the months to come, we're going to exceed 4,500. Would it be right to say that this is another political statement?
Well, they make, unfortunately, in Nigeria, we are used to ministers coming up to make such statements. We have problem with distribution infrastructure. Distribution networks need upgrade, expansion. They need injection stations in all their distribution stations and networks. How much have they invested to upgrade, to expand? And because of this, they came up with what is called performance improvement plan, which each distribution company was made to prepare and submit for approval. And as a result of that, the regulator, that is Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, now approved what is called capital expenditure, CAPEX. For instance, this 2024, the CAPEX for the next 4 years for AEDC is about 17 billion. And this 17 billion, which has to be set aside and given to them from the revenues they collect, is to enable them to do what? Invest on this expansion and improvement or upgrade of distribution infrastructure. Right. Before this, under MITO 2022, as amended 2023, they were given, MITO 2020, they were given 15.16 billion.
So how well have this money
and these monies were not spent? That is the problem. And when we say the problems we have in the sector is that of the regulator, the governance space, that is not ready and willing for whatever reason to stamp his feet and get these things done. You approve 15 billion for a period of 3 years, and the fellows will come and tell you, oh, we spent 2% of that money, we spent 3%, we spent 10%, and you're not approving again.
Okay, so now it means the threat by the federal government to revoke the licenses of, non-performing discos does not hold water.
the threat by the federal government, this has been over. There are regulatory instruments put in place, even in their vesting contract, the contract they signed when they took over these assets. There are provisions there. You can invoke regulatory instruments to take away these licenses from them. To begin with, they came up and said they were going to reduce what they call aggregate technical, commercial and collection losses from what it was then in 2013 for about 40-something percent, 50-something percent. They are going to reduce it. Have they done that? I can tell you authoritatively that as of today, AEDC's, okay, let me use the Port Harcourt Disco. Port Harcourt Disco's ATC and C is 35%. What is the meaning of the implication of that? If you give them a bill of say 5 billion, you are taking out 35% of that money and they pay the balance. The higher the ATC and C percentage loss, the lower the revenue you get from them.
Well, indeed, we have a long way to go as far as, the power sector is concerned. But, to wrap up the conversation, of course, the IMF had recently expressed concerns, around subsidizing electricity, especially for a country that is, that is grappling with economic, issues almost every now and then. Now, the federal government is saying that electricity subsidy will not, be scrapped immediately. There's a way they're going to phase it out, in the next 2-3 years. But how realistic is this?
Well, when you are talking of subsidy, and the main problem in the sector is liquidity. Liquidity is a function of what? The liquidity crisis is a function of the inability of the distribution companies to collect monies to sell electricity to Nigerians. The market is there and huge. I have just told you here that over 90 million Nigerians are yet to be captured. And I have told you here that we don't know the exact figure of Nigerians using electricity. So if we want to solve this problem, number one, there must be a nationwide customer enumeration to capture these people and bring them into the net. Two, there must be a deliberate attempt like it was done in Zambia, Kenya, South Africa, where they have registered, and India, where they have registered 100% metering. 100% metering of the consumer population in their respective countries. And by so doing, Kenya brought down their ATC and C to 7%. Zambia, 13%. Here you are talking of 35%. You are talking of 40%. You are talking of 28%. So we need to meter electricity consumers. In Zambia, I'm not citing foreign countries, America, no. I'm talking of Zambia here, in East Africa. Yeah. In Zambia, they brought in companies who went house to house metering.
Well, there is so much, to talk about here as far as this subject matter is concerned. But in a yes or no response, do you think this administration is ready to deal decisively with the issues?
They must first understand. They don't seem, even the minister, Adelabu, don't even understand the problem for now. Okay. That is why we are calling on him to reach out to those who will talk and tell them the truth and nothing but the truth. Not people who are sitting in ministries, generating memos laced with falsehood and sending to them.
All right. Well, if you must know, UKET Obonga is someone who is very passionate about issues, in the country's power sector. But I'm afraid we just have to leave the conversation here now because of time. Secretary, Nigeria Electricity Consumer Advocacy Network, UKET Obonga, has been my guest. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for news analysis today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Omoife Peace of Semere, and I'll be back at the top of the hour with the news update. Good afternoon.